very concerning case has just been brought to my attention, and I've actually been watching it unfold live on Instagram in a broadcast from Dubai. Zaynab Javadli, who is the former wife of Sheikh Saeed bin Maktoum bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who is a part of the royal family of Dubai. She's been live streaming what's happening to her right now, which is the police are out front of her property, apparently trying to get in to take her children without a court order, and her father has been arrested. Now, she's obviously in a state of extreme distress, hiding in her apartment with her 3 children. We've contacted the authorities and also the ambassador to the UK in hope that this will be resolved in a peaceful way. It's extremely concerning, but I think, you know, she has raised it on live Instagram. That's putting her at risk of cybercrime violations and additional charges that could be levied upon her because of her husband's power position. Essentially, she's in a country where she has no rights, and where we've seen Princess Haya has had to flee before exercising her rights of custody and also to divorce her husband, Sheikh Mohammed. It's a little concerning that she's still in the UAE and subject to their local laws. So we have to ensure that she has all of our international support, the media support of the international community, and that eyes are on the UAE. We want to see her treated fairly and the children treated fairly. We're tired of seeing children just ripped out of their family homes without going through proper due process and family law courts. And even if they do go through family law courts, we want to see that equality coming through. The UAE has been heavily marketing itself as the ambassador of the Middle East as far as women's rights are concerned, that women have these fabulous rights, that they're allowed to, you know, be on the directorship of companies and that they are treated fairly. But the reality is that we see rape victims being charged for sex outside marriage. We do see inequality. We see that a man's allegations in a court of law are taken far more seriously than a woman's. And if a man accuses a woman of being a terrible mother, or that the children are at risk, that obviously the courts are taking that seriously. They're taking children from their mothers, depriving them of access, depriving them of any sort of legal proceeding that could be considered fair by any kind of international standards. We have the risk that allegations can be levied against them, false allegations by the husbands, and especially in this kind of a situation, that false legal allegations could be levied against her and she could be jailed for some crime she hasn't committed. It's diplomatic. It's essentially, if he wants to see her in prison and he wants his children with him, it's going to happen. Look at what has happened with Sheikh Mohammed and Princess Latifa. Look at what's happened with Princess Haya. It's only through the English courts that she was able to obtain custody. Had she remained in Dubai, it would be entirely at the will and the whim of Sheikh Mohammed, the father. And in this case, again, we're seeing this repeat. So it's very important that we offer all of our support to Zaynab, and that the international community insist that she is given fair access to her children, that her children are not stolen from her, mistreated, and that she doesn't end up in a prison or worse. And well, we want to see a speedy and positive outcome with this. We're staying in close touch, so we're going to see how this unfolds. It's still unfolding now. The police are out front of her house, and her father's been taken away, and that she's in tears, as you can imagine, and it's absolutely heartbreaking to watch. No, there is no equality before the law in the UAE, particularly when royals are involved, absolutely, and we've seen that time and time again, and particularly in family matters. We see that even if they're not royal, that the men are certainly going to have more ability to get what they want out of child custody matters, family matters. But if they're royal, as I said before, it's going to be, if he wants it, he will get it. And that's Middle East wide, that's the UAE. And if they want to team up with countries like Israel, like the US, like the UK, we absolutely cannot tolerate this anymore. We need to see equality in the family law. We need to see equality in divorce proceedings, and that the children are respected and they're not just seen as chattels, which is what we have seen of Sheikha Latifa, who was seen as a chattel. She was not allowed her freedom. She's still stuck in the UAE. She's been subject to an enforced disappearance, and of course this can happen anywhere in the world. They're willing to abduct children from outside of their borders. They're going to be absolutely willing to abduct children from within their borders. So, please stay tuned. I'll be following this, obviously, and we'll be working on this. We'll see what the Emirati authorities have to say, but hopefully in her thinking quickly and acting fast, as Rahaf Mohammed did, as Sheikha Latifah did, and going to the press, she absolutely secures more possibility of a fair hearing in the UAE, and secures more possibility that she's not going to be deprived access of her children. We're very concerned of what might happen for her having live streamed other people who have spoken negatively about the regime or about their personal situations, and we are talking about a member of the ruling family here. She has spoken live and publicly and is still in the UAE, so we're very concerned of what might happen to her, and it's very important, again, that we circulate her plight as much as possible and really bring it to the attention, spotlight of the media. Let's see what the authorities have to say and stay in touch. Absolutely. I mean, Princess Haya having fled the UAE to go to the UK and only then initiating custody procedures and family law proceedings in the UK. There's no way that she would do that in the UAE, because absolutely the children would automatically go to her husband. In this case, it could be the same, but I think that if we're all following it, if the international spotlight is on the UAE, we're going to see that they're going to have a lot of pressure to approach this in a different way. Otherwise, it's just going to raise again the abuse of women under this regime, essentially. This constant abuse of women. We've seen several Emirati women I've helped over the past few years, after Sheikha Latifah, in fact, have left and fled the UAE for fear of not getting a fair trial, for fear of not having access to their children, that they'll be entirely deprived of any access to their children and will automatically go to their husband regardless, even if he's been abusive, physically abusive, as was the case with Hind al-Baluchi. So in this case, it's very brave of Zaynab that she's actually gone and live streamed from the Emirates. She must have felt like she was absolutely in a desperate situation, because nobody wants to do that and put themselves at risk, and of course their children. But she must have felt that if she didn't go public and didn't call out for help, that her children would be taken, and perhaps she'd be deported from the UAE, never to see them again, or that she would be imprisoned, or that they would do what they want. But she's absolutely fearful, obviously, for her children, and her father, who's just been arrested. So stay tuned, everyone.